Welcome, everyone, to the virtual book release party for Spells for the Wicked by Marc Vincenz. I should have grabbed a copy and waved it in front of the camera, but I have them over here. I can do that later, or Marc can do it right now. If you don't know, Unlikely Books, which is the publisher of Spells for the Wicked, is an outgrowth. There's the book. Is an outgrowth of the unlikelystories.org website. If you've never been there before, just open up your browser, open up a tab to unlikelystories.org and look at it later once we're done. You won't be disappointed. It's a fabulous website. I know, I edited it. And that makes me your MC for tonight. So we're going to start. We're going to start with a mysterious masked poet, and she is not wearing a mask after all. It is Dominique Vincenz, and she's got a couple of poems for us real quick. And Dominique, let me unmute you. Thanks very much for being here and reading tonight.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yes, hello, everyone. My brother did ask me to wear a mask, but it's been just a week, so there's no mask, just two poems. So I'm going to get going. I chose the two that I find the most absurd and wonderful, and I'm going to start off with Gastric Bypass. She sips her tiny cerveza and chews her teeny tapa, a mini black olive marinated in lemon and rosemary, skewered on a frilly cocktail stick. She takes her petite nibbles and contemplates the meaning of her long second marriage. 30 chews for a morsel no larger than her fingernail. Besides, she says, they muck up her new braces. She's thinner than I last saw her, but not too much. She's been indulging since her last cockatoo, Captain Redbird, died from the lead paint he stripped off his bamboo perch with the Captain Morgan logo and the "Aye, aye, Captain." Those Chinese factories will do anything for a greenback, she says, fingering her hot, bleached hair, raising her Yves Saint Laurent sunglasses and pursing her lips in a frothy epithet. Pet shows are in cahoots. Chinese are driving up cat food prices. She says when she recently tried to squeeze into her old bikini, her husband bored at the love handles that formed along her hips and the cellulite on her upper thighs. Who wants to tumble and roll with a fatty, she says, taking out her compact and reapplying her gray blue eyes. For months, she's resorted to eating parrot food, hard, seeded biscuits that tasted like crunchy grains of bitter coffee, a business in which, by the way, her love bundle Ivo was a big investor. He had plantations as far afield as Indonesia, and money was no issue, so he had her stomach stapled to half its burgeoning size. Now, a single raisin is a full meal, which is delightful when Iva wants to slide her in beside him like a sleek slip of crisp paper. The little her inside, she says, remains persistently beautiful. And here's my favorite poem ever, because I told this to my brother, and I think he thinks I'm a bit weird because of it, but that's all right. It is my favorite poem ever because to me, it literally speaks to the absurdity, for me, of our lives. Things that dangle themselves in your head. Anchovies, seaweed, conger eels, carrots, paper cuts, origami knots, an open hand, an open sewer, oily beards, fringes, angioplasty, salubrious objections, cold mint tea, swagger, cricket and crickets, fledermäuse, Snickers bars, snippets, gyrating hips, hot toffee apples, Snapple, stuffed chili peppers, ink blots, mountain goats, Muppets, a tight fist, Punch and Judy show, roasted almonds, vacant lots, geothermal subterranean vents, crushed beer cans, graffiti. Escalators, garlic, garlic, garlic. Fish sauce, black roses. Violins. Vampires in the lemongrass, snakes in the woods. Twisted spirits. Twisted spines. Fingers twisted in the curry. Diamond earrings, butter croissant, dark chocolate, diamond mines, Midas touch. Moctezuma, El Dorado, Jaipur, Dar es Salaam, Lagos, soiled fingernails, thyroids, larynxes, scabs, quinces, minces, jellied sardines, platypuses, jellyfish, fishy cloud work wafting away, crustaceans, whales, Fingerspitzgefühl, mettre la main à la pâte, goose step finger walking, crispy fish sticks, goose liver pâté, grass skirts, bamboo puppets, panda bears and fire breathers, adobe vats and jars, raisins, raisinets, raisin bran, chloroform, patent pending, OxyContin, scratched Teflon, mercury, radiation poison, thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face, all thumbs.
Dominique?
Happy early birthday, Mark. And maybe we won't have to wait another 5 years to see each other in actual person, but it's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Dominique. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dominique. That was fantastic. All right. Our next reader is Caroline Hagood. Caroline is an assistant professor of literature, writing and publishing, and director of undergraduate writing at St. Francis College. She is the author of 8 books, most recently Weird Girls, Writing the Art Monster, Filthy Creation, and Death and Other Speculative Fictions. Her speculative memoir, Goblin Mode, is forthcoming in September from Santa Fe Writers Project. Her work has appeared in Electric Literature, Creative Nonfiction, LitHub, The Kenyon Review, The Huffington Post, The Guardian, Salon, and Elle. Let me find you and unmute you, if I'm that clever. Okay, wonderful. All right, what will you be reading for us tonight?
Well, I will be reading from Death and Other Speculative Fictions. But I first just wanted to say, Mark, thank you so much for inviting me tonight. You have such an amazing amount of books, the number is so high and the quality is so good. And so I'm just impressed that you are able to produce this amount and this caliber of work. It's really amazing. So this book, it's called, it's subtitled An Essay in Prose Poems. So I don't know, just to situate you. And it's a book about mourning my father using speculative fiction, essentially. Okay. All I want to do since losing my father is molt in my nest while drinking speculative fiction that goes down like a shot of witch tequila. When they all asked if there was anything they could do, I requested a time machine, Back to the Future. The piece in the science section recently showed these phenomenally layered images. Some were of planets far away, some of minuscule things seen under a microscope, but both looked the same. A microscope lets us see in miniature. A telescope aimed at space shows us the past. Just think what we could do with the DeLorean or with language. I've had one too many, and I'm ready to remake the spatiotemporal order. I'm shotgunning coffee and Googling, but seriously, how real are ghosts anyway? At 3 a.m., then worrying the algorithm will compute this and send me the wrong kind of ghosts. What have I become? Binge reading about death at all hours in some off-road attempt to bring my father back from the dead. Is that what this is? In my late night research, I discover crucial death-related tidbits about the cast of Jersey Shore and other deeply important celebrities. For instance, Snooki is very sensitive because she won't eat lobster that go live to the boil. It's also central to know that Keisha is all for donning roadkill and signs off ahead of time in the case that you'd like to wear her teeth as a necklace to the VMAs. I picture that my dad can still see me. He knows I'm working hard to exhume him. He has a wicked sense of humor, and I can feel him in stitches. I got it from him, this dark comedy, investment in haunted things, connoisseurship of the absurd. The more I read, the more I see that the history of writing is the history of grappling with death. Immersing myself again and again in my dad's final moments as I write, edit, and reorder this document, delete and then resurrect sentence fragments, move phrases from here to there, building, word by word, a linguistic time machine to bring him back to me. I love you, my father. This book is a seance. My father is across from me, our mouths flapping, into the second hour of talking about Blade Runner, when he passes me a dragon fruit. Because I'm revising, I move this here, after he has already gone. Time machine that is writing, so he can live again on a page, his ghost inflaming the paper's cellulose fibers with its speculative innovations. I also employ computer-generated imagery here to make him dance to bluegrass one last time. Look how he moves, jovial, finally at large. One not fun part of revision is having to relive the moments of hope that I now know were not symbols of his future salvation. But even this revision is an important part of the mourning process, a repetitive exercise in sorrow that eventually alleviates it, or better yet, one supernatural day transforms it into something more audacious, a second paper life for my father. How did I get like this? Well, I was an English major for starters. You know the type. In college, I thought I could feel the books living inside of me. One of the things that starts to happen as you get older, and particularly in this month in which everyone I know is dropping like flies, is that the once clear line between life and death starts to seem more permeable. As my mom says, my father is now everywhere and nowhere. He was so mystical and his sensibility so slapstick, I'm almost disappointed in him for not reincarnating as a wisecracking parakeet or enchanted umbrella. I'm skipping a little bit around. Okay. Understand my unhinged plan. I will be like Tita in Like Water for Chocolate and put into my cauldron my wild wish to have my father back until my dinner becomes necromancy under my mad direction. Not that my son knows I'm having these thoughts, or maybe he does, since he often claims he can read my mind. In a carefully choreographed routine, I take the food from the refrigerator, get the recipe, help him, but step back. The motions, much like mothering, as I try to simultaneously hold on and let go. Xerox this and hang it in the dystopian end of world camps. We must work on our apocalypse skills. After seeing Triangle of Sadness and how all the privileged people didn't know how to do anything when stranded on the island, I am happy I have my single practical skill. I will have something solid to bring to the final days. Being able to feed people is not nothing. You might even say it's everything. Cooking can always be used, saved recipes as autobiography, pesto chicken with a side of world suffering. There's nothing other than this. I take the herbs out of the fridge and pluck them. Then my son takes his 5-bladed scissors and starts to flurry the green. We stand next to each other, only time and plant life between us. Basil falls from us, around us, and then seemingly through us. He lays the chicken down away from him into the oil, but only as I've taught him, after it starts to shimmer. I grind the spices with my mortar and pestle. What comes out is, instead of pesto chicken, a transformed multiverse that invites us in. Zeroing in on all that matters, we don't summon my father, but we do eat together at the kitchen island, still talking, edges of our elbows touching on granite, hot basil oil dripping down our chins. Okay, that's everything. Huge celebrations for Marc. And I can't wait to receive 5 more books next year that I'm sure you will publish. Okay.
5 only? Actually, I hate to brag, but this year it's 7. I don't think next year will be 7, probably maybe 3. But yeah, what comes out, comes out. Thank you so much, Caroline. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Caroline. All right, next up we're going to hear from Dan Raphael. Dan Raphael's 27th book, How'd This Tree Get In?, will be published this fall by Ravenna Press. His 26th, In the Word Shed, came out from Last Word Press in 22. More recent poems appear in Unlikely Stories, Ink and Thirds, Literary Hatchet, Skull Crushing Hummingbird, and Mad Swirl. I really have to find Skull Crushing Hummingbird. That one's new to me. Most Wednesdays, Dan writes and records current event poems for the KBOO Evening News in Portland, Oregon. He is also one of the staff reviewers at Unlikely Stories. Dan, what will you read for us tonight?
Oh,
Okay.
I've unmuted. I have a mix. There are things from 3 different manuscripts and books and something I wrote last week. I don't have any spells, but the closest I could come is this invocation. May we be invisible, living below the radar, between the cracks, outside the spectrum, beyond suspicion, camouflaged by blandness, awareness, and smooth movement, not worth fearing or knowing. May we be immune to the lies of mirrors, windows, holograms, eyes other than the ones in our hearts. May we not be in the wrong place at the precise time for a bullet, crazy violence, an uncontrolled vehicle, something hard enough falling from the sky. May we stay away from the military, the penal system, the medical system, the welfare system. If we must go into any, may we come out with only temporary damage and not too heavily in debt. May we be subtle and generous in our actions. May we stay happy, fed, curious, sheltered in some ways and wide open in others. May we embrace the benefits we are given and see difficulties as wins, and inexperienced and attentive sailor can find the angle through. May we not die too soon or live too long. To me, part of magic is seeing things that other people don't see. Mirage in the street. Light changing when I'm in the middle, trying to decide, declaim, or decline. I empty my pockets and leave them there. To affirm and drill or deny and harvest. A cloud no wider than me and half a mile high. Car grills opening like lilies who missed Easter. When walkers and drivers trade places, sidewalks impassable with free goods and throwaways, neon fissures in the asphalt, fruiting bodies of boarded up windows. It's called complywood, berry errors, the signals of trafficking, porking spaces. Who'd rather commute than commune, impose than create? My back up against the gas meter. Do I want a badge or a uniform, an accordion arm or a clarinet throat? Turn the key, floor the pedal, and a deluge of percussion. Windows can't decide to popcorn or melt. Signs take wing, addresses add up and demand payment. I go for my wallet, but a hand's already there. This next one is from a book 5 years ago called Moving with Every from a press in Southern Oregon. And I mean, if I could do magic, I'd like a spell to create poems. I mean, obviously, Marc has that spell since he keeps creating them multiplicitly, but To me, it requires some kind of spark, and sometimes it can be one of 1,000 days I've looked out my window where people are playing with their dogs in the schoolyard, waiting for the DNA test. Could I count the black dogs in the field if they stopped moving, or is it just 2 or 3 dogs, displaying simultaneously all the places they've been and will be there, chasing the ball of the sun, playing tug-of-war with a hank of river? The crows near the homeless camp know me, breaking open a plastic bag of rain-soaked bagels and pastry so more could eat as more fly in. And what of our oak, tormented by squirrels, strip-searched, gnawed, then expected to provide shelter in a hole or crotch? Who else is living there, not counting the moss machines, the insect processes? But I don't mean bees, more functional and intelligent than we could ever, no matter how we choose to miniaturize, to export natural functions to devices we can never fix, only upgrade. Is there a mammal whose skin no one ever wore? A bird whose feathers didn't decorate some body? The tree my door came from, the ice that became my window. When a dog's tail is wagging, where are his teeth? When I think it's night, but my windows are covered with crows, as flesh as a veil, as clothes announce our sadness at having so little fur and no feathers at all, just these thick bones to withstand small collisions and keep us chained to the earth we seldom rise from, seldom run across full speed, trailing slobber, dust, and fleas of random memory. I drive a mile to the Thirsty Dog. The bartender asks if I'm a service animal, or might I be in season? I mean, inspiration comes from all over the place. The other day, about a week ago, my wife and I were reading some W.S. Merwin for breakfast, and this came up. A breath leaves the sentences and does not come back. W.S. Merwin. Something went away and took its word with it. A word that's not mine, a sound that can't be spelled. A word that looks like something else, a sound that was impossible before metal. Silence while I'm trying to come up with the word. I see it, but don't know how to say it. If you'd been there, you'd know what I mean. I remember the sign, but only a couple of the letters on it. Like a tattoo the wearer of can't translate. In the clouds, I see shapes, never words. An alphabet dependent on shadows. A music best appreciated by those who speak the same language as the composer. I'll drop a hint. Make a suggestive gesture. The meaning depends on whether I'm sitting or standing. Close the book and see what tries to get out. At the piano, with my eyes closed, with another hand joining mine, how shadows can spell, how rain on various surfaces and containers. A birth that isn't silent can be a concern. An earworm, a town where silence can't be found. This is a time without number, a day I remember singing a song I'd never heard. I open a book, I turn on a radio. Where's the window I was looking for? Is someone still asleep in the other room? A sound no humans made before. There's a word for that. Sometimes, the inspiration for a poem can be reality. Like the summer we had bad fires here in Portland and downwind from forests screaming. House arrest, unrest here in the city with the world's worst air, evacuation warning line a mile away, sky glowing orange like another planet, the sun invisible except for its pulse. Hey, everybody, the apocalypse is in town. And this morning, my lungs are feeling it. No quick hope in the forecast. Step outside. Do I feel lucky today? If I could glow with my inner burning, smokeless, canned essence, my inner lumens, fuel from the busy times stashed for the lean, 'cause heat's gotta move. When I can see out but not go out, can see outside my body but not leave it, world slowed down by lack of light, motion, safety. Big wind came through, partied a couple days, then left without paying or taking any trash. Since the smoke and ash are mass cremation, why wouldn't I keep thinking of death? Since the slim odds of winning the COVID lottery are keeping me inside, why wouldn't I pound against all 6 sides of this cage? Maybe get slim enough to slip between, to take in so little air, be so spacious, microspit would go right through me, like a mirror would go through me, as what I ingest gets reluctant to leave, as something I didn't order waits on my doorstep, aromatic with nostalgic hunger for choice and spontaneity. If I lose any more weight, if supplies run out, no messages coming in, no matter how many I send. I'm sure I'll recognize what's across the schoolyard when I can see there again. And I'll close with this one, also from Moving with Every. And not sure where this poem came from. The title usually comes after the poem, and you can see where this title came from. Dancing like nobody's watching in a constant surveillance world. When all the music's made us deaf, all the dancing and runnings put us on wheels, I feel a bass I can't see or hear, my bones metallicized by rust-belt childhood. Bridge cable piano needs at least 12 miles an hour wind to start a rhythm. How many gulls and crows, the black and white keys, the chords of brown sparrows, yellow finches and cardinals no blender can dissolve. The sun's shining, but I couldn't afford my subscription, my prescription. The faucet runs 2 hours a day with a row of paint chips adjacent to tell me how much I can drink without a rupture. Walls dissolving into glass-free windows and unframed doors, as if this patch of abdominal skin can go another day without washing. But where are safe hours to sit in the laundromat with exposed muscles and viscera while my skin goes beyond the delicate cycle? Mom's old curlers rise above the city as cell towers, growing and dividing. Mitotic bubbles of unclaimed and rejection messages rain like jellyfish with so many offers, invitations, threats, and why do you never answer? That's not a light switch. This only looks like a handgun. Anything can be a lighter, a letter opener, salt and pepper shakers responsible for 3 miracles and 10,000 lunches. When I stop looking at the clock and the sky, my skin breaks out in sunlight. If I don't know how the wind smells, 10 minutes will bring a different food cart. All the cars replaced with teleporters, but old freeway noise tracks maintain the roar that prevents our imagination from flowing out of us so quickly our instrument could choose sides or at least be seriously bruised. We're home. We're hungry 3 ways. The extra bedroom's always busy, as if we live in a silo, a cornucopia, where the inventory's in constant flux and filament. In this new green world, where all the rainwater goes right to the brewery, I snap open a couple cans to hear, see, and smell the clouds releasing. Clouds looking for a good time, a time they're not subject to or objects of. How could the ancients have described marvelous sunsets when they couldn't see blue and the air was pre-industrial? Some visionary Roman turned mad as he saw the Appian Way become the Autobahn, a highway with no exits but plenty of tolls, toll drones scanning your credit line and gene spectrum. As if any scan could tell what I dance like, how high I can jump, how many genera established in the hanging gardens of the lungs. How the only reason my thumbs don't fly south is I need them as spoons. When the music embargoes the outside while focusing my body on the moment, partners in a ritual of earth drums, city bass, eyes flashing brass, finger reeds, heartstrings, off the charts and in the groove. I'll never do these moves again and don't need to. When they cut the power, police the streets, sever my legs, Pour unrecycled aluminum in my ears. I'll dance even more vigorously, intently, unstoppably. No one will get near me. The music only gets louder. Thank you.
So, Dan, it's funny that you mentioned cut the power because we've lost power here at my house. I have managed to reconnect on my phone, and I'm doing I missed most of your set, which I'm very sorry about, and I'm doing my best to figure out how to go forward. We aren't going to do bios anymore. I'm going to try to find Tara's. I'm going to try to unmute Tara, which I don't know how to do on my phone, but we'll figure this out.
Sorry, I made your power go out.
It was definitely your fault.
San
Okay.
Andreas.
Everyone, thanks for your patience. All right. Ask to unmute Tara. Yes. Okay. We will be able to continue.
I am here. Oh my goodness. Well, the spells must be working. Hopefully we can keep the internet going though. All right. Well, I will go. Hi, my name is Tara Campbell, and I am honored to have been published by Unlikely Books, Political AF, a Rage collection. And so thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Mark, for inviting me to be part of your launch. And Caroline and Dominique and Dan for reading. It's been lovely listening to you. And you've actually encouraged or inspired me to change what I was going to read and do something a little weirder. So I'm going to do two sestinas and then another poem in the voice of a uterus. So we'll start with the sestinas. The first is called The Snarling Stars. Oh, sing of glimmering stars, of a heavy golden key and waves and beaches. Sing of ocean dazzle, the shimmer of mermaids, leviathans snarling and slick, flanks wide as sky. Sing in praise of sky, of wind and weather, jubilant stars and surf, of seaweed snarling swimmers' feet, of the golden key, its heavy shimmer strung around your neck. Sing of selkies and treasure chests. Sing of sailcloth snapping sky, the waves' green shimmer in blackest night. Of shooting stars, St. Elmo's fire, the twins' key on your chest. The mermaids snarling their hellos, greedy men's fingers snarling in flowing hair until they sing, ah, drowning is such sweet sorrow, off key, sighing their goodbyes, blessing the sky but cursing the stars that doomed them, the same shimmer that saved you, kept you far from the shimmer of lithe arms aching to drag you, snarling to the ocean floor. Sing in praise of stars and golden keys and treasured islands. Sing of the glimmering helpmeets in the sky that lead you to the one chest matching your key. Sing now of the riches your key opens. Savor the shimmer of gemstones green as forests, blue as sky. Open the sand-encrusted chest, hinges snarling at the invasion. Sing of diamonds sparkling like stars. But what did it cost to crack open the sky? What price your golden key? Only the stars and their saving shimmer. Now you're rich in darkness, unseen snarling mouths, and the madness they sing. The second poem is also a sestina, and poets know what I'm talking about. Non-poets or folks who haven't worked with that particular form, you'll notice certain words repeating themselves. And so that is the case for this poem as well. This is called The Prophecy Unswaddled. Disregard, if it distresses you, the churn of bodies, slap of flesh on tile. Ignore the bend of knee, the twist of hip. Swaddle your senses in believer's fire. You are the vessel that will bear the vessel that will churn out the vessel of our Lord. The fire that shimmies inside your flesh is merely the desire to swaddle up our future vessel and bend your arms around her. Around every bend, you'll imagine fresh threats to your vessel, causing you to pull her swaddle tighter, a danger in itself. Your mind will churn with each disaster that could befall her flesh, every drop her drowning, every spark the fire that could burn her alive. But fire is necessary. If that distresses you, try to bend your mind toward joy. Find it in the flesh that led you here, secure in your path as vessel. Surely you can find comfort in the churn of your fellows, the bodies that swallow you whole. Won't you swaddle with them? Won't you swaddle them with your limbs in turn? Return the fire that burns in them for you, the churn of hips, fingertips grazing the bend of your knee, slipping from thigh to vessel, gripping anointed flesh. Not everyone is blessed with holy flesh. Precious few have been chosen to swaddle the vessel of the future vessel's vessel of our Lord. Don't you want to feel the fire of fellowship inside you? Every bend of your body enveloped in this glorious churn? Where are you going, vessel? Who granted you your own flesh? How dare you reject the churn of prophecy, a Lord to swaddle? Who let you glimpse the fire of your soul, impossible to bend? And my last poem is not a sestina, and I'll just jump in. This is called Prolapse. Any middle-aged ladies in the house will know what I'm talking about. The uterus is tired. The uterus is sorry, but it can't seem to stay in one place anymore, which isn't surprising considering how often it's been poked and prodded and pricked by congressmen's pens. The uterus would like to get in a word of its own, just one, even edgewise, just one goddamn word. The uterus wishes it could remember the words to that song you sang when you didn't have to worry about your uterus all the time, when you didn't have to be so goddamn vigilant, didn't have to keep twisting and turning away from men shoving laws into it edgewise. The uterus is tired, so very tired. The uterus would like just one goddamn moment to itself. The uterus just wants to be. The uterus is sorry, it can't give you that. The uterus remembers when it was barely aware of itself, which sounds like a contradiction, but was merely a state of grace. The uterus is small and pink and lovely and valued and sacred and blessed. But no, the uterus doesn't believe its own press. Well, it didn't. Well, it shouldn't have. And now the uterus is continually disappointed to find it is neither valued, nor sacred, nor blessed, nor even safe. The uterus is tired. So goddamn tired. The uterus is sorry it's letting you down because now it's letting itself down slowly, uncomfortably. This is called prolapse. And the uterus wants you to know this is not your fault either. And it would have told you everything sooner, but the truth just gets the uterus bullied, harassed, and threatened with rape for upsetting men. And when the truth is too educational, it just gets the uterus kicked off the socials for porn. Some days, the uterus feels philosophical, and some days the uterus feels angry. Who are we kidding? Most days the uterus feels angry. If not for itself, then on behalf of other uteruses who are told they're overreacting to getting bullied, harassed, and threatened with rape for upsetting men. The uterus is often depressed. But today, the uterus is simply tired. The uterus needs a break to forget how everyone is always talking about it, even when it's not even in the room, especially when it's not in the room. The uterus is tired. And the uterus is tired of being asked why it's tired. The uterus no longer wishes to be interrogated. The uterus just needs a little time, a little goddamn time to itself. And who can blame it for feeling heavy, for wanting to slide just a little bit lower and rest after everything it's had to endure? The uterus simply wants to sit in the warm and the dark, mind its own business, and quietly sink, baptized in silence, blessed, finally, with one goddamn moment of peace. Thank you.
Yeah, not used to doing this on my phone. I'm tapping Mark, and we're going to ask to unmute, and we're going to move right along. My apologies. Mark, the man of the hour, are you reading from Spells for the Wicked for us tonight?
Of course. This one is called Before Farms Were Run by Artificial Intelligence. 1. Nobody is looking ahead, but seized yet stirring in a political tide, and the wave of probability still persists. Perhaps there is an element of laziness, a warm subterfuge to benignly smile under the eye of the landowner beholder. How much love is needed to build a combine harvester, to wake the sleeping farmers from their downy pillows, with barley and durum and flax and emmer, with corn and soya and rice, with potato and plantain, and cocoa and coffee, with tea and tomatoes and transnational milk, with pasteurized and hydrogenated citizenry, sodium nitrate and her half-brother monosodium glutamate will find their pathways in all their arteries, and the sugars will coalesce on their shores. And the question posed was, where is all the energy spent and assigned? And then, how and when is it apportioned out? 2. Is it a matter of faith that these creatures will, as a matter of course, or DNA, if you will themselves into the concept of efficacy in ultimate, perhaps celestial design, that life is self-fulfilling, ever adaptable, continuously evolving toward the future? And therefore, the faith suggests that the creative principle, tendency, or inclination, that trial and error, learning by doing, so accumulation, has led us to this very point in history. The moment the landowner beholder reads us our due diligence. If not we, who would take charge? They chant. I think that's very apt for the moment. And in retracing my family history, I came across this. Into the hands of a holy Roman citizen, 17 denarii from a Sicilianus, 12 talents from a bald yet hairy Ostrogoth, 9 silvers from Imperial Tokin, 3 bronze pelts from the Antilochos in exchange for an ivory tusk and a tiny red ruby. I too was acquired by the Roman Empire, where once in the corner of the Colosseum my Latin ancestors stood, trident and net in hand, facing the crocodiles on one side, the lions on the other. Meanwhile, a barbarian queen approached at full tilt, her chariot tearing through the sand as if she had been a stunt double in Charlton Heston's Ben-Hur, or perhaps my ancestor had been a parsimonious git, a wheeler-dealer, just like my immediate pater familia, who, when in a corner, would invariably pull out his dice and toss and toss until the numbers added up. You could count on him to go for the sweet deal, but build a little buffer on the side. And when through the world became his very own oyster, even though he loathed them, far too oceanic for my alpine tongue. And he tongued and nibbled and lip-synced, his mouth full of perfunctory notes in exchange for a mouthful of compote and a lap dance. Anything for the wife and kids back home. And across the planet he soared in search of profits, polecats and polemic, ending up in bars and restaurants on the edge of the known in the jungles of Indonesia, the turquoise shores of Pacific islands, the white sandy beaches of polyamorous nation states. They say on his wedding night, he left the conjugal bed and wound his way through the streets of Tokyo, shored into a Yakuza dive, the Shinjuku wave, where Kirosaku was waiting with 3 Osaka pearl divers, stripped to the waist and ready to submerge into their element. Angie wound her way through the wet streets of Tokyo and found him, 2 of the sprites sitting on his lap and feeding him peanuts. She slapped him around the head, tore the martini from his hand, and downed it. 3 olives and all, or maybe they were pickled onions. Still, he laughed on, teasing the knees of Yuko. Aiko, on the other hand, reached behind the bar and pulled out an ancient German Luger, loaded and ready at the hilt. "We're gonna take you," she said, and true to her word, shot what appeared to be lukewarm sake straight into Angie's tired face. A Polynesian bouncer by the name of Taito appeared behind the curtain flexing his tattoos and ordered our pater to pay up or get out. And thus he did, staggering home in the rain propped under Angie's angry umbrella. Like any Roman citizen in a bind, he professed his fealty to his young wife and swore this was just a momentary lapse of his senses. Marriage, after all, was no laughing matter, but Angie's silence had the last word in the Tokyo twilight. Rome, of course, was not built in a day or two, but grew into all its tentacular proportions with cold steel, clear-headed military precision, and millions of feet, hands, and mouths, all prodded in the direction of Agrippa's pantheon. Had he lived in the era of Hadrian, Pater Noster should most certainly have been a fish sauce trader, fish sauce again, crossing the Mediterranean 100 times or more in his search for the fishiest business partners, even miles from the coast. It is known family lore that our menage was descended from a long line of Etruscans or Phoenicians who, unhappy with their Roman usurpers, headed upwind into the mountains to put distance between them and Rome. And having settled here far from the madding Yelp, they farmed goats, sorrel, and blueberries, yodeling on their own gumdrop of alpine heaven, perfecting, believe it or not, the art too of cheese, curds and whey, churning a tidy profit for the displaced mountain folk, until centuries later they became the biggest goat cheese makers in the Retia Prima, and are thus, once again, offered full Roman citizenship. Villas overlooking lush green valleys rose up in the Alps. Steam baths steamed. Toilets had dolphin armrests and pine-oiled apple wood seats. A panoply of gods cast their golden eyes upon the coniferous trees, the mules, donkeys, and oxen headed to market, the early pâtissiers, and the well-oiled bordellos that lined the colonnade of paved mountain avenues. As a full Roman citizen, Pater Noster was afforded all rights and, as a result, could never be crucified, even though he strode through the killing fields of the southern plains. All he wished to do was stand head high in the forum and proclaim his holy lineage. And yet, far into the centuries, crossing the equator 100 times, our Pater, who art in heaven, hallowed be his own name in deeds and misdeeds, struck deals with men of low morals, who reaped and raped their lands, all for the glory of empire. And of course, later on, honeymoon in Hawaii, at a luau, I was inserted into this fine, fecund universe, all of Tokyo's sins forgiven. And in a vision, the new world appeared to our Pater Noster. It has been said it took 17 martinis and even more Cuban cigars. But in the end, gladiator he claimed he was, he remained the last man standing. In his dream, a mangy lion pounced upon him and tore his face and body into thin strands. A herd of stampeding elephants finished him off. The dream, he surmised, was one of Hannibal crossing the Alps to erase the once glory of Rome. And yes, a foreign devil dwelled in the rafters of his own windy attic. I am much more than this, he sometimes said, when drunk or tired or dead. In his sepulchre, his second wife, Pixie, an Ostrogoth, placed his ashes within a plastic heart. I remember her gently caressing the surface, in which was engraved, "In the end, as is the fate of all Romans, looking back, return to stone." And so there you have a little bit of Vincenz lore. There's quite a bit of truth in that, actually. And to continue in that vein, we're going to do V is for Vulcan, Vincenz, and Vesuvius. We have to stay with the Roman theme, I think. And it goes like this. My old man praised himself for not being like his own pa, old pa, but striking out to the furthest shores from his home, a mildly coniferous alpine village sautéed in pristine sunlight and chanterelle mushrooms, where the jangle of the cowbells foretelled snowstorms, and the ghosts of Huns and Romans walk the forest in the bewitching hours. At the age of 19, he made off to the city and sold exclusive ladies' shoes door to door. He would barrel down the slick cobbled alleys of Zurich's Altstadt, suitcase of slip-ons in each hand, stopping off at the Schweizerhof for a cool, frothy brew and bratwurst with a roll and mustard, before hitting the Bahnhofstrasse in a mildly inebriated vim and more mature youthful vigor. His first client that day was a Mistress Nicolette Chantal, the bedazzling owner of La Grande Boutique Bijoux, who fussed over his Steve McQueen hairdo and that little Marilyn mole on the edge of his lip. She purchased 20 pairs of the Musicien Toscano, a stiletto built like a tap shoe that snapped as he trod the sidewalks. The champagne cream pair had often featured at weddings and funerals that previous season. This new model, however, also possessed a Venetian buckle made of gilded blue blown glass from the enchanted island of Murano. Mistress Nicolette Chantal invited Pa to join her in a snifter of Armagnac and an amuse-bouche of pickles and saucisson sec. One thing led to another. Eventually, in the Liederstube, over crystal brew, they danced. He sniffing her equine neck, she wandering over his long elephantine earlobes with the tip of her delicate ivory nose. At 3 o'clock in the morning, he'd stripped off her negligee, and she arched back like a panther in heat. In that moment between confessions and further libations, Pa's own Pa, old Pa, appeared in the doorway, his back hair glimmering in the moonlight from all the Brill cream. I've been told Pa was licking Mistress Nicolette Chantal's engorged nipple, and her left leg was raised with her Mexican pink toenails pointing toward the Sistine Chapel-shaped ceiling. Old Pa lifts the studio couch above his head. They said he could bench press 5 fully grown men and an old oak door, and tosses it in the direction of the unsuspecting coupling. From that day on, my old man swore he would only ever sell industrial, factories, conglomerates, cooperatives, wily companies feasting on the fringes, all run by men, vulcanized in their steadfast tread. He held his couch scar in high esteem and fondly recalled Mistress Nicolette Chantal his entire lifespan, until, indeed, at the end, he announced his undying love for her. She, a married woman with 7 children, who, had my mother not been, would have been his femme fatale until the end of time. And yet, when she, Mistress Nicolette Chantal, herself died, that bruise on her eyelid never quite fully healed, she called out his name. "Vincenz!" she wailed, wrapping herself in her finest Egyptian linens. "Let us resurrect together and vulcanize in the winds of time like Vesuvius." And so, the last one, continuing that same tradition, is from another book, which I just actually finished writing, and it's also about my grandfather. The book in question is called Methodology, and this is a poem called Loving William Tell, starring Lorenz Vincenz Senior in 8 loving acts. 1. Any worthy Etruscan chef. My grandfather Tut, like any worthy Etruscan chef, said he always steamed profoundly but inefficiently. Those practical Sangiovese Romans, he would sometimes breathe begrudgingly over a glass of Vino Nobile Montepulciano, entwined in the smoke of fumes of a hand-twisted Ticinese Culebra cigar, while contemplating the most up-to-date method for browning pork chops in diced chipolata, onions, butter, and balsamic vinegar. 2. The coconut gathers. He excelled in many other ways. For example, in Grandmother Tata's dog-eared photo album with a whiff of cold cream, Seratum Refrigians, there was a black and white of him at 20-something raising a solid pinewood door with 7 beefy lads in various lazing poses perched upon it, millimeters above his freshly grill-creamed and widow-peaked head. In a bridge game for 5, cards raised, Grandmother casually recalled that evening when the church bells had rung half an hour early. "We were particularly blessed that night," she said, flicking her second ace of that hand. 3. Crossbow and apple. Another shtick, Tut relished, was bouncing a razor-sharp carving knife on his hefty biceps while preparing a bouillabaisse for 27 hungry Swiss Army recruits. He also claimed he could, with ease, crossbow in hand, cigar fuming beneath his ample moustache, snag a hat trick. He could hit a fly at 27 yards, a hair's breadth above the head of his eldest and most promising child, ratifying thereby the Constitution of the Swiss Confederation. When, at the age of 75, summoning all his zeal, he demonstrated for us his skill on the parallel bars, we never again doubted his wile. 4. Coattails and other perils. Was it Max Frisch who said that Switzerland never generated sufficient literature to render a single postcard, or the black and white Edelweiss and the Matterhorn notwithstanding. But truth be told, that is not quite true. Just because we are neutral outsiders, believe we are stand on the fences who put our little coattails gently in a whimsical mountain breeze. We do as everyone does. We too have faith in the word, Tut said, and chewed at the bit of his best rosewood pipe. 5. A season of cheeses. Although he neglected his faith in idiom, Tut savored his cheeses and air-cured wurstel, pickles doused in alpine herbs, and garlic-infused rabbit gently roasting on the spit. And that long, twisted cigar he smoked, a shy world fuming within herself. 6. Almonds and goats. Once he'd told me he'd worshipped the gleaming brass buttons on his Welsh girlfriend's tight little lederhosen. She wore them as and when the alpine foam finally broke. Oh, and the transmutations of truffles in the hidden valleys, and the ideal subgenera of pig most suited to snorting beneath the dirt of certain oaks, and the almost undetectable, delectable pheasants clicking to their heart-soothing mercies, or the wolves of creation, circling softly, crisscrossing national boundaries on transnational whims. This he told me while sipping on an after-dinner Armagnac and loading his pipe with something unusual from Algiers. 7. Nuts and pasta and castanets. There will always be another carbohydrate revolution, said Tut, sifting the semolino. No one wants someone else to crack an egg over their head. Eventually, just like ravioli, someone's revolt will spread. That's why we remain neutral in all things, said he, slicing a piece of ham for the filling, then tossing it out the window at a stray dog. 8. And they who dreamed of Switzerland and her clean, vitrified alpine air, he almost sang, tears welling up while he peeled an onion. She, with her bountiful coffers of conifers and pine cones and their fine courses, and those little ants who by the bazillions fertilize the pine trees and harvest the pine nuts for their feral little pine children. As such, the discourse between father and pining offspring, he said, crushing the garlic, chopping the chives, brutally massaging the chicken breasts in their musty brine. And to close up, one last poem, a little short one, also from that book, which I just finished. And actually this one just came out in the Journal Osiris, and it's called Methodology in a Fictional Landscape. But the tropes endured and confused themselves with someone else, someone uneventful, someone who eventually became someone else, someone utterly unknown in the deepest wrinkles of mythology. Thank you. And thank you all so much for joining us to celebrate this launch. I hope you all have a copy, and if you don't, send me or Jonathan a message on Facebook or something like that, and we'll try and get you one. I'm very grateful to Jonathan for publishing this book, and for all the years we've worked together. This would be, I think, the 4th or 5th book that I released. Say again?
Fourth
book from Unlikely. But when Jonathan published my first book when I was still living in Switzerland, so that was a long time ago. Anyway, guys, I'm very, very grateful, and hope to see you also on the August the 23rd, which is a lip balm show for my birthday, but also to take a look at Spells for the Wicked again. Thank you, Jonathan.